Talked about prefabrication. These racks above our heads, these corridor racks, multi-trade prefabricated corridor racks. You see the kind of the exoskeleton here, the steel exoskeleton. Unistrut. That framework, those ribs, were all welded together, fitted up in this rack that you see here. We built these off-site in about 300-foot sections in a warehouse, and then cut them into 20-foot sections so we could put them on a truck and bring them out here. But we would build the frames, and then each trade came through and put, you see everything from conduits, ductwork, piping, cable trays, all those different systems. They put it on a trolley system at the warehouse where they were building them. So these racks were actually sitting kind of at bench level where these guys could work on them without having to be on ladders, without having to work overhead. Everything's right here, kind of in the strike zone.
Temperature controlled.
Putting it together, temperature controlled. Saved a lot of, if we were trying to build all this up here, you can think how many ladders and lifts, all the material up here, trash back down. So huge benefits to doing this off-site, where you can do it in a controlled environment. About a year ahead of time when we needed these racks, building them. So we started with the 4th floor racks, got those built. We figured out a pace at which to build those so that we could store just enough racks. We had not a lot of storage room for them, but kind of just in time delivery, but we were about a floor out ahead of where we needed them. So that was a big benefit during COVID. We had about 16 people off-site working on these racks, different trades, and that helped decompress things during COVID significantly, because that crew put a lot of work in place without having to be here on site. So, with the use of BIM, we were able to model everything. You have to have a little bit of, you got to account for some tolerances, right? Your steel isn't going to be 100% plumb. There's a little bit of tolerance there, but we built that all into this system. So end to end, there is no adjustment. We ran it right out to the end. We were able to model that, and then with our grid lines here, it was all pretty tight. We modeled this all through BIM, and then we did some virtual exercises actually, where they brought laptop and some HoloLenses, so some video gaming goggles essentially. Brought those out to the building we were in right there. We were able to put those on. They projected this rack virtually at about 5 foot off the finished floor, so head height, and I could put those goggles on, walk around with my head up in the rack. So if you were standing on a ladder and had your head up in there, what are you seeing? And we were looking for things like access to VAVs, access to valves, this kind of work, stuff that most people aren't thinking about when they're building these or modeling these. So we could take a look at that. We had some of our facilities management team come out, look at these. We saw stuff that we did change, access to valves, like, hey, we're never gonna be able to reach that valve over there because there's 3 pipes in the way. But you need for prefabrication, right? We built, there was I think like 260 of these racks roughly that we built. And you don't want to run ahead and build 260 of these things and find out you were a couple inches off on every one of them.
So even just a simple rod like that, that's all modeled 3-dimensionally, and as soon as that floor slab's hung, they can shoot that anchor in, drop those hangers, and run through. Before all these studs are in the way, all the hangers are hung for the whole project.
Even beyond that, so Pete mentioned shooting the hangers. We actually put the hangers in. We put the hangers in pre-pour, so we had everything coordinated. Walk around with a GPS, a Trimble GPS, up on top of that deck, and you mark where every one of those is going to be, and you put it in through the top. So the insert's there. You pour the concrete around it, and then right here's a good example. So this is a trapeze right here that the ductwork's going to run on. You got 2 threaded rods, and that piece of unistrut that's zip tied up there will eventually come down and be your horizontal piece. So Shaw and all the MEP trades, they modeled these, so they knew that they needed however many rods that were 5 or 6 feet long, whatever those are. They've got a station down on 3rd floor, and then they got a station in the MSB also, where they have some apprentices doing nothing but cutting rods. So if they know they need 1,000 rods at 5 foot long, they cut the rod, they put that washer and that nut on there, they cut that piece of unistrut at 3 feet, zip tie it to it, and then all 3 pieces of that come out together. We'll probably see one as we move around. They have these big blue bins. They have these kind of dividers in them, and all those things are kind of stacked, componentized. Is that a word, componentized?
Something. I know what I meant.
Yeah. So and then so the installer he grabs those 3 pieces, puts them up there, boom, they're right there. Rather, another large prefabrication initiative was all this curtain wall you see here, all this glass. We built that in unitized sections. It was built in a shop factory up in Canada, where they built these sections. So every section that you see there, mullion to mullion, is, you know, what is that, about 5 or 6 feet wide, and then more than a floor tall. Those all came out already frames, glass in it, glazed, done, and you'll see some big clips that everything rests on the floor. So that was part of our design assist, where our structural guys and our curtain wall guys work together. But they bring these out, so then instead of being up on a lift and putting up every stick of curtain wall, putting a piece of glass in, putting all your pressure plates on, they can take this big piece, crane it into place. They just stacked them in there like Lego blocks. And this whole curtain wall that you see here, everything, if you were to look at it from the north, a crazy amount of glass there, put all that in about 2 months. If we did it conventionally, it's going to take 6 or 7 months.